Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Melanin Minds, where we are uplifting Black women in the comic book and manga space. Welcome to season 3. We're here. Do you like my pretty backgrounds? I've switched spots. It's great. But of course, as some of you might remember, in the Midnight Comics 4-year anniversary stream, I made a big announcement. I have a co-host now, an awesome co-host, and that co-host is Ty of Blanket Culture. And now we're here. I know you probably couldn't hear anything I said before that point. That's why I was just like,
Oh no, 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 no. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. We're here. We're all here. Hi.
yeah.
I'm Ty.
So get used to seeing both of our lovely faces from now on, unless otherwise stated.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and now I'm having audio. Hold on. Turn it up. I had to turn me up so that I could turn you up in my ear. And does she look so pretty today? She got her little lipstick. It looks so nice.
Oh, I thank you. I did something a little nice. You probably won't get this moving forward. I'm probably gonna roll out of bed, put a t-shirt on, but today just for you, I showed out.
We love a roll out of bed and just do it queen because why do we need to be made up? The guys don't do it.
I feel like for me, especially when you like as a content creator, everyone has kind of like their I have to put this on in order to do the thing. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, most days if I don't go through the process of like putting on makeup, then it's I'm not going to be able to do the thing. So today, if it to cue you in, I needed I needed to put this on so I could come here and do the thing. But I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to be your new co-host.
Meanwhile, I just finished washing all the makeup off my face. But if I didn't do that, I would have come on here green, and I don't know if I want to do that right now. But so today's conversation is probably it'll probably be longer than we're thinking because we like to go. So, Ty, question: your
Mm.
thoughts? Do you think that it seems like when men write black women into their stories and include them in, especially if they're lead characters, that they get a lot more praise for doing it than, say, when black women write stories that are centered around black women characters?
See, I have a very complicated take on this because first,
I've been waiting weeks to hear this.
y- first the question is do you feel like black men get more praise for writing black women in comics? And the first thing I'd say is, well, how many times are black women even being featured in comics? Period.
Mm,
Um, because it's not like it doesn't happen. And it's not like those characters don't exist. But oftentimes, even in some of my favorite comic books, a lot of times the black female character is a sidekick or a support character. And there really isn't a necessity to get into the intricacies of that character's, emotions or feelings or X, Y, and Z. So in that regard, if there's a black character present at first, if there's a black female character there, and and we're talking about her, I'm excited. Let's just start there. I'm excited just to see her on the page, and she, and she's the main character. Um, and then the second part to that is a lot of the black female characters I've read, and this could just be because of my proximity to the indie, specifically like indie black comics world. Most of the women I'm reading are written by black women. So maybe I'm not the best person to talk about this. So, and maybe call it privilege. But that's actually like so much of my work is finding indie characters, finding indie books, and looking for my representation. So, and also, I'm not a big mainstream reader because I know like it's a big thing that happens in Marvel. I know it's a thing that happens in DC. But even like the characters I am getting introduced to, when I read the oh my gosh, I want to say this wrong. What is it? No, I'm getting the names mixed up. Nubia.
Oh, newbie. Okay.
I wanted to get it mixed up with Niobe, which is Stranger
Ah.
Comics, which I'll come back to later.
But they both start with an
Love
N.
them, by the way. They do start with an N, but Nubia, I found out that Nubia, the most recent books that were being circulated, were written by Stephanie Williams, and I love
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie Williams' work. So even in the mainstream, when I got introduced to like mainstream Black female characters in comics, it was written by a Black woman. Um, Now, what I will say is the times that I hear people getting praise for writing characters in general, whether they be Black or otherwise, I don't very often hear it to Black women. Um, I if she's even in the room. Um, but and thinking of the popular comic book characters, so like uh at least in the indie space, so you have Niobe, which again, Stranger Comics, Sebastian did a wonderful job writing Niobe, and I think it clearly shows this is not just somebody who loves Black women, but who's in community with Black women.
I do
Um,
want to say though, to be fair to Sebastian as well, he did exactly what we always talk about. Because Amanda Seyfried, no, what is her last name? I forgot.
oh no,
She,
I'm
but
so bad with names. I know the first name.
yeah, I can never remember how to. I can't remember who it was. But there is a black actress, and I'll probably remember later because she's literally on my list of stuff, who helped him to write at least the initial, like, Niobe stuff. So I always love that.
Mm. Okay, okay. So there was definitely like that's good to hear. Even closer to home for me, Onaji Rouse of Concrete Comics, who wrote Odina and Kandake. He talks a lot about being in community with Black women. Um, there is a Steinberg. Okay.
Steinberg. Sorry,
Thank
there you go.
no, you're good.
My brain
Um,
was white.
then you have Mega Woman from Godhood Comics. For the most part, I think that she's pretty well written all around. Um, most of the also Tanya Evil from Antagonist under Godhood, still one of my favorite characters overall. It's just a really good book. So most of the women, Black women, even if they are written by men, typically it is by a Black man. But I don't, in my personal experience, it hasn't been to any more fanfare. If anything, it's just they do have more visibility. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
if I were to critique something, it would be the stories written by Black women are rare to receive that same kind of visibility, or that just be to maybe they don't have the platform. Maybe they're an indie, creator. So for like they literally just made the book. Um, yeah, I've like I said, I've in my experience, it's not that they're getting more praise. It's just that they don't have the visibility and the notoriety. So I guess that's what I'm looking for. Is
Yeah,
I want us to know that they exist.
yeah. And I think I agree when you said it. That we do have a bit more privilege being in this space,
Mm-hmm.
because with us being in the space and being constantly on the lookout for other women like us, we're able to find them a little bit easier. Even if it's
Mm-hmm.
just, all right, let's see what comics are going on today, or what's on Kickstarter, or who do I know and who do they know. We have those
Mm-hmm.
connections in this space to be privileged to know some people who can put us into contact with those women that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you said something just a second ago. It was like part of my thought process going into this was black women don't have the same platform a lot of the time, or they're very consistently overlooked because I think we said this once in a previous season. Comics is still very much a boys' club.
Oh yeah,
Very
absolutely.
much a boys' club. And so many people are just like, well, comics is for men, or women don't read comics, or so why would I care about representation? There was even the thing with Kira back when we were talking about having a black woman writing for Storm. And people
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh, well, why do we care? Why does it matter? Or let me guess, you want a writer and stuff like that. And it's just like, why? The pushback is always absolutely insane. And then when we
Mhm.
find it, people don't support it as much. And like with a lot of other things, black women get overlooked, black women get pushed aside, pushed to the back of the line,
Mhm.
or um, like with Jamie, when Jamie, her first book, she was saying it did like really good, and then she did the second book, and like a lot of people just stopped paying attention. It's like, what happened? I thought y'all were here to support her. You know, I threw my money at it.
Mhm.
I threw my money. Jamie did good,
Right.
especially with that book. But I was just like, what is happening? Like, unless you
Well,
already have like this really large platform from something else that you're doing, a lot of people
right.
are either not looking or they forget about you as soon as the next exciting thing comes out.
Exactly. And I think that it's important to outline one of the main reasons of why black and black female visibility or black femme visibility is going to be lower. The comic book industry is still overwhelmingly white male. I think the last time I looked at the statistics, it's somewhere around like 60% of comic book readers are still white men. Then from there, the breakdown is probably about 15% is male, and then that's undefined, and then the rest was women. You know,
Right.
for just an American standpoint, black Americans to this day still only make up about 13% of the actual people in the country, and that's not a 50-50 split when it comes to black men and women. Also thinking about just demographics of how people consume media and different demographics of, even in like the nerd space, what do people typically gravitate to? I think it is so, and people often use that as a reason about why there is a disproportionate representation of black women. Oh, because there's not that many out there. That would be
Mm-hmm.
false.
The percentage is small, but there is a lot
Mm.
of
Yes.
us. You gotta go find us.
Exactly.
Big
The
deal.
percentage may be small. And I feel like I have to reiterate this on other platforms as well. The percentage of black women in the space, um, just because of access, also because of stigma. You know,
Mm-hmm.
black people grow up in most black people aren't do not come from affluent families. That is just statistically what it is. Most black people come from middle class or poverty or under the poverty line families that don't have access to generational wealth, and our access to media from there is going to be different than the average white American or than the average person who it does have access to different things. Even if you liked comic books and manga growing up, or if you liked pop culture growing up, you may not have ever thought that that was a space for you because you probably never saw yourself in it. If you were represented, you weren't represented in a way where you felt fully recognized. I say this all the time. Like my first interaction with media that I felt represented myself was the daughter from Meet the Parkers. That was the first person I ever felt like, damn,
Mm-hmm.
that girl looks like me and sounds like me and has some similar sentiments to me. When it came down to animation, I didn't find it. I still to this day, I think there's only like a handful of fat black femme characters that I like. Ah, she looks like me. Um,
I can't think of a handful.
yeah, and that's me hunting. Most of the characters I end up identifying with were strong female leads, and most of that I didn't get from, like, yeah, Barbie movies, the Winx Club, but a lot of that came from anime. So I heavily gravitated to then. And then when I got into comic books, like, yeah, there's the Harley Quinns. I love Harley Quinn down. But she was heavily dependent on Joker. And if you look at Poison Ivy, this whole her and Harley thing is fairly new development. So there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't any of that sapphic stuff there. There wasn't anything mainstream that I can look to within the last, I would say prior to the last 10 years of me being in this community, there wasn't anything that I was like, representation. And representation is so important because if you don't even see yourself in the room, in the space, even as an idea, why would you think that
Mm-hmm.
that was for you? Why would you think that that's something that you have access to? And with the additional connotation of comic books, manga, pop culture in general, just being relegated to be something for children. And the people often make it seem like it's for a younger demographic. So all of those things line up to Why aren't you in the room? Here are the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all of that being said, I have had the privilege in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years to be introduced to so many black female creatives, so many black femme creatives that I didn't even know was a black woman behind the project until I'm doing research about it, or I'm talking to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, so and so's doing this. And I'm like, it was
Ah,
her all along. Ah.
it was her all along. It makes me think
So,
of a post that Crystal made recently too, a couple times. She said, "If you are only buying comic books for your children, what does that tell them about comic books and who comic
mm,
books are for?"
right. And I also think it's community as well. One of the big pushes that specifically got me into pursuing in my personal life being black in culture and pursuing this as an opportunity, as a career path was my mom and my dad seeing not just the passion I had, but that it could potentially be a viable career path. Because for a lot of um, black women are one of the most educated demographics in the United States, but oftentimes that education is for things that is guaranteed to make you a dollar because you want to make sure you're securing generational wealth for you and your family. So you go into a career path like the medical field, or you go into finance, or you go into a field where you're guaranteed to make a paycheck because at the very least, you can secure money for you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
The arts, there's tons of black people in the arts of always, but there's always this understanding that if you're going to pick the arts, you need to pick something that's going to make you money. And for the longest time, sequential art as a career path wasn't guaranteed to make you much money. Sequential art in itself is still a very new art form, like in the way that we're doing it. Um, Even when I was going to school and I was looking at different pathways, I wasn't thinking sequential art or comics or manga or culture or media or communications or any of these things that might go into this business was something that I should get into. I chose musical education. So, um, taking it all back to like the main question is, are black men being celebrated more than black women? I suppose that by sheer
Men
technicality,
overall.
yes. I mean, yeah, are men overall being celebrated more for writing black characters and black women by sheer technicality? Yeah, like it would make sense that they are, simply because there's just like our visibility, our access to this platform, just not really great numbers there. But I feel like something that people could do is when people are doing like these top 15 black publisher lists and these
Mm-hmm.
top 5 artists and these top 5 writers, I would love for those lists to be black women. I would love for them to use SEO and say top 5 black female writers and top 5
Mm-hmm.
black female artists and top 5 black femme publishers or publishers with black women at the forefront. That would be cool. That would help with visibility, but no one's really writing those articles though.
You know who could?
You
Platinum.
know,
She got a whole
always.
new thing going with a magazine now. She got her own articles and writing her
Ah,
stuff over
yes,
there.
I do.
Nice.
Shout out to the folks over at Off Black Mag. They're an amazing platform.
They
I
are
have been
awesome.
writing for them. They are awesome. Also, yeah, also having platforms where you can say the thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Comic book and Screen Rant and everybody under that little umbrella, as well as other like legacy comic book publishers,
Mm.
there aren't a ton of black or POC writers there. Um, there people, black and POC people go there for the new updates, but there aren't a
Mm-hmm.
ton of black and POC writers. I wrote
Which,
for
quick
yeah.
shout out to Roxy Hayes for being on comicbook.com now.
Yeah, shout out to Roxy. We love her. Roxy's an amazing comedian and overall just
Comedian,
talent.
nerd, just all the
Hmm.
things.
She deserves that. And I think that that's like I wrote for a large magazine earlier. I want to say about 2.5 years ago, before I started working for Indie Comics Dispatch. I won't mention their name, but I wrote for them. And when I was writing for them, um, their turnover was really, really high, and the amount of time you had to write a detailed article was very, very small, and you weren't getting paid a lot. So there's also that as well. These magazines don't really make it easy for you to get in, even if you get hired. It doesn't make it easy for you to get in, and then that turnover, and then who are you working with, that can all determine on who's being picked up. I'm really happy that Roxy got picked up, and she probably will be treated fairly well. But sometimes that is not the case when you're getting picked up
Yeah.
for a writing job. I think it like I'm yapping a lot, but really it's just like it's an industry thing. I just think like the industry is um
Not
really,
as made
really,
for us.
it's not. But it's changing. And I think that
Hmm.
that's one thing I really I'm happy for. I'm very hopeful for. The industry is changing. Even I don't know when this episode will come out, but as of the recording of this episode, um Fantastic Frankie,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
just joined a podcast, an official
Yep.
DC Comics
DC
podcast.
podcast. Hmm.
She's a host of a DC Comics podcast. That is
And that's on top of having
amazing.
her own talk show.
Right. Fighting Words. She has her own talk show. Then we have Kiera Please, who has her own production company, and she helped to produce a small film which you can watch on YouTube called For Snot Girl. I'm sorry, For Snot Girl. It was a small production. Um,
Not to mention
there,
several music videos.
yes, several music videos because she's an artist as well. Then you have Cheyenne the Geek, if I'm not mistaken. Cheyenne the Geek, Zeno Robinson, and another young lady are
Okay,
coming
that's
together
the
to
comic book
create,
shop. Okay.
yeah, the comic book shop, which right now it's currently on Kickstarter, but by the time you guys see this, that
Oh, it's
Kickstarter
already
will
over.
be over.
And it will be funded.
Um,
At least it better be.
it better be funded. I'm putting all the coins I have together to try to get this thing funded, because
Yes. I
it's
already put
so
my money
like,
in there.
listen, and we're trying to get it funded, because and that's really what it is. It's like, it's
Hmm.
not that we don't exist. Black women in this space do exist, have existed for a long time. And we're out here and we're putting in the work. And if you think about it, people like Cheyenne the Geek, Frankie, Kiera Please, they were really the first generation of like black women in the space to reach acclaim and notoriety. And now they're
Hmm.
finally, after half a decade, are finally getting into spaces where where their careers are finally on this public platform. So it's going to take probably another half a decade for us to get anywhere. And that's just, and I'm not trying to, I'm being honest. Like, I'm in here for the long haul. Clearly, I'm not doing this for the money.
You've been
I'm
doing this long enough. You have definitely way less than 5 years, girl. Anyway.
I'm just saying, like, I say all that to say it's difficult, like with everything, all the statistics and everything I've talked about
Hmm.
black women in education, black women in their access to the space, black women in their proximity to comics, black women in all the different things that they have against them and for them. um it really is just, it's important to build community, and that's why like Melanin Minds is so important as a platform, because I don't think without Melanin Minds you'd have such a catalog of people who can talk about their experiences, who can talk about their life, who can talk about uh their creations of sequential art, and be heard and be supported, and you can hear them. Because a lot of times when you're looking up, like, I like, it's high key part of my job. I Google a lot of black comic book this and black manga that.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of those people that I pull up are men. And then I type in black woman this and black woman comic that, and it's like two results. And it's a poorly put together list, and it's got like
Now,
five
to
books
to
that
be
everyone
fair,
talks
one
about.
of those top results that comes up, is usually Blurred Girl, and her lists are
Well,
always A1
the crazy
when I
thing is
search.
the crazy thing is I haven't actually, and it could just be that I need to start searching on a completely different maybe I gotta use like a VPN or incognito mode when I'm looking up stuff, because that's another thing is like SEO. Like I've seen one of the and everyone, you're so right. The Blur Girls articles are literally perfection, but I rarely ever get them when I'm like doing my first preliminary search. Like you're talking about top hits on the SEO. That's another thing. It's all algorithmic. Don't get me
You
started
know
on.
how the algorithms do. Those would be the
don't
things that set us back, if anything.
don't get me started on the dimmadam algorithm. That's I'll be here for 2 days.
Dimmy damn
Just
dimmy don't be on
did,
that dimmy damn algorithm.
don't get me started on that damn algorithm. Because it's just like algorithmically, like it really is like if you don't have like great SEO and like you're not
Mm-hmm.
really paying attention to how everything's are saying in your titles and then you're hitting all these freaking keywords, we might never actually see an article. Like even articles that I have written, it really just depends on how that article is getting pushed to people, where you're putting your platform. And I think if there was something that I'm really interested in, as I kind of move into co-hosting this and seeing how this podcast goes, but also in my personal, is trying to figure out the best way to market black women to people, because there's
Mm-hmm.
I already recognize that when you put black women in front of something, there is already a chance that someone's just going to click off because racism. But for everybody who is willing to sit around and aren't scared off by ooga booga black women, you know what do we do to get them to be pushed to the forefront? And so, because
Ooga booga
sometimes
booga.
it is.
Don't
Sometimes it is.
encourage the cowardly dog.
Listen, sometimes they see a black femme face and they're just like, oh my goodness, she's gonna start
I
preaching to
know.
us. It's
Oh
if it's
God.
not Oprah, no, let me stop.
Yeah,
Let me stop.
Oprah,
That's well,
Oprah.
that's not actually it.
Uh,
um, but if people aren't off put by the melanation in my skin, and then they aren't off put by the femininity I exude, then from there, what can we do to capture people's attention
right.
and continue to spread their voice? And I think that that's probably a pretty interesting place to start. And I wish there were more platforms that were for black people by black people that were doing it, because on the sites that are made by us for us, I do see us. So I won't
Mm-hmm.
even say it's like in those spaces, because in those spaces they're like, yeah, shout out to our black woman, shout out to this, and they'll put her name at the forefront. But in other places that aren't really for us or by us, where it's fewer manage to you have to be literally the most perfect person. And not to say that these people aren't the most perfect people, because like I said, Stephanie Williams, who is writing for DC right now, and a plethora of other projects. She's also writing for Marvel as well.
Mm-hmm.
But she really is perfect. She's like as close to perfect as perfect could be. She's a beautiful writer, a wonderful person. Um, but
When we finally get her on, I'm gonna tell you about her too.
oh, don't tell her. I'll blush.
She'll love it.
um,
She's a sweetheart.
but when you're talking about like other than that, like you should I feel like, my personal opinion, you shouldn't have to have 12 years worth of writing experience, because
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do those things, only simply because a lot of the people in the industry that I've had the pleasure of, and it is always a pleasure, I've had the pleasure of working with, they tell me their stories, or they tell me somebody else that they've worked with, or they tell me other stories. That's not the case for more
Mm-hmm.
people than you think in the industry.
A
um
lot.
and it's not even on some like nepo baby thing either, because someone like, oh, it's because it's legacy. No, sometimes people are in the right place at the right time. They don't really have the skills and someone takes a chance on them, and they literally are, they're wonderful, they're perfect for the job, but they didn't have the dearth of experience as other people, who are their peers, who are next to them. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times I find that the people are getting at these experiences don't look like me or you. you know, there aren't a lot of right place, right time for women that look like us. So I think that that could be something that we should probably be trying to get into. What is it going to take us to be in those spaces? How do we get to those spaces? Why does it feel like it takes us almost a decade to do things that other people are? And these are also my lived experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel about it. I wish I could say I cared about how other people feel about it, but I don't. Not
You
really.
don't, because it's affecting us and not them.
No.
But no, but it's like we
So,
said before, it's important for us to make our own spaces,
mhm.
and that'll trickle. It's always the trickle down effect. When we make our own spaces, then they start doing stuff because they see how successful it is.
Yeah, or something crazy will happen and something unfortunate will happen and then now everyone's
Mm-hmm.
scrambling to feature us because now all of a sudden
Exactly.
black lives mean something. Even if it's only until 2022.
Well, Black History Month is coming up, and 2025 is a doozy, so you can only imagine how they're going to do it then. Um, or it could just be the worst Black History Month ever. I don't know. Hey,
you know,
we've got plans.
it's Black History Month every month in my house, so I just
Yeah,
it's a perpetual Black History Month, but you
but
know,
you know
this
how February goes.
the crazy thing about February is that it really just depends on where you're watching. And it's like, again, because I'm in the community, when I'm looking in the community, when I talk about, also that's another thing, like I'm just so in my community. And this happens to everybody, you're in your little bubble, you don't really see it, because in my community during Black History Month, I'm seeing nothing but black and brown faces, big beautiful faces, big beautiful
Hmm.
bodies. It's just
That's why I
blackety
try to
black
stay
black
over
black.
there. I try to stay over there
um
because the second you leave, you're like, "Eh."
Great. The
Or if you look
second
at like the age
the
stream, it's like, okay, but is this gonna last beyond the 28th or
Mhm.
29th, depending on if it's a leap
Right.
year or not? Like, I
Mhm.
still always remember that year, and I feel like that was last year actually. Might have been this year, where DC hired a bunch of black women writers, and they had
Mm.
some and artists, I think too, and they had their Black History Month thing, and as soon as February was over, they fired everybody.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. They said, "All
It's actually
right,
crazy.
your month is over.
Your month
You're
is
done
over,
now.
genuinely. Your
We don't need you
actual month.
anymore.
I
We
mean,
added you on for less than 30 days."
I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I think also people just don't believe that those things happen either. Like I've told people, like in casually, like I'm at a convention and we're talking and I've talked to people about like it's crazy. I've done a lot of different things in media and I just like, it's not accredited because that's another thing that happens is that I've worked on books as a writer and as an editor for people outside of my community, and I haven't been credited. And at first, when I was getting into this community, I didn't really take it as an L because I was like, oh, I'm just getting the experience. But now, as somebody who is experienced and I've been doing this for a while, I'm like, damn, I did free work and I ain't getting
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I got that little pinch of coin
Right.
and nothing else. Um,
Exposure doesn't feed me, and also,
and,
if I don't get credit for you, I don't have the experience on paper for anyone else to
mhm.
feed me now.
No one, and you can say I worked on it, but if your name's not in the book, it
Mm-hmm.
don't matter either.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why crediting when you're if you are a reviewer or someone who talks about comics, your goal should be to credit everyone who is listed in that book, as many people as you
Mm-hmm.
can. If nothing else, the writer, the illustrator, the colorist, the creator, and
Mm-hmm.
the editor. Maybe not marketing, maybe not marketing. Maybe you do credit
Everybody put
marketing.
hands on the book at least. That's what we do with what we're reading. Is we try to be like, all right, and if we can't remember everybody's name, we'll be like, okay, we hit some people. Now make sure everybody's name is at least on the screen in the
Right.
video. Because sometimes remember people's names is hard, and then you don't
And
want to do a lot of
I'm so
editing after
bad
the
at
video is
names.
done, so you don't want to go back and forth grabbing the book and reading
Hmm.
the book every 5 seconds. Be like, okay, it was so and so, and that's okay, yeah. So that it's like we're trying to keep editing to a minimum.
I'm so bad with names, and the name could be easy. It could be like
Oh yeah,
Tanya Good, and I'm like, what was her
it
name?
was
What was her name?
I
I'm over
forget.
here looking. Name could be like Sophia Brown. I'm like,
Right.
I can't remember that woman name to
Sometimes,
say.
sometimes it just there's so many names on the book. Like
Mm-hmm.
this isn't shot like FSK. They have a lot of people that work on their books, and so
Mm-hmm.
you'll be like, okay, I know this is the creator, usually Michael.
Mm-hmm.
This is the writer, and the line artist, and the colorist, and the editor, and the other editor, and another colorist, and the cover artist. It's like okay, that was like six people. Um, I can't remember everybody's name.
Really, really and truly a comic book team.
Yes, I mean, they
um,
are. They really are.
but I guess like if I like had a TLDR of my thoughts, I feel overall, um, we're here. We've always been here. We will always be here. You know, everybody like literally we've been here for a long time. Like, I was just posted somewhere about Jackie Orms, the first one of the first black woman cartoonist to ever get her work syndicated. And I've talked to other people. Yeah, please look it up. I'm so proud. I
Oh
always
no, I
like
wasn't
to.
looking at it. Sorry. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure I had that as one of the facts for season one. But at this point, there's so
ooh,
many that I
there's been
just
so many
can't
facts.
remember.
Um, but yeah, Jackie Orm, she's like that was back in the 40s, 50s, maybe. So like that's probably, and I
I think
think
that was early 50s.
early 50s. And comic books as a whole, like what we recognize as comics today, like even you're talking about like the Wham Bam comics of like the early era, that was like only 1950s. Like when we talk about like, oh, the golden age of comics before we hit like the 80s and the 90s,
Right.
that was really only the 50s and 60s. So since comics as we know it, the inception of the books as we know them, we've been here. And you know everything from her to Otis, who is the first indie, like who actually released the first black indie book, all the way through Milestone, you know, through the
Mm-hmm.
early 2010s to now. Like we're I feel like sometimes it's so interesting to think about how we black people as a whole, we've helped to build so much of everything. Right. We
Including this
build so
country.
much in this, including this country, including the literal land we
The
stand
literal
on.
country, the buildings, the
The literal
flags,
the
the
literal
streets.
ground, our literal blood, flesh, tears, sweat. We literally help to build so much of the industries that we enjoy, and it is often really depressing to notice that like for such a small percentage of the country, we've had such a large impact, and the reverse on that representation and that accolade is always so insignificant and so small. Not to say that
Mm-hmm.
we haven't received large accolades, we haven't received, you know, like there's Michael Jackson, you know, but also in that same vein, like when you're talking about these industries that quote unquote black people don't do, we do them. We're here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
We're
I
just
feel
always a
like black
smaller percentage.
always a smaller percentage, even though we sometimes make up the largest voice in it. We be all up in there, but the accreditation isn't there, or our faces aren't in the back of the book, or our names aren't even being brought up when we're talking about who created it. And that's where black women really fall, as far as like if you're talking about a small demographic with small demographic, black women's voices are so powerful and impactful within comics. But the on the reverse side, the amount of accolade and showcasing we're getting for the work we're doing isn't proportionate to the work that we're putting in. And I feel like that's where it is. Across the board. Within our communities, I feel like our communities could do better jobs of platforming us. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to the black men and the black men, we should also be supporting the black queer, Black non-binary, Black disabled, Black femme voices that are there as well. Because those underrepresented communities as well. You know, there are Black disabled comic creators, there are Black queer comic book
Mm-hmm.
creators, there are Black non-binary comic book creators, and they're all making amazing
Lines
products.
in my eyesight.
Oh yes, yes.
Like
And they're all making
definitely.
comics. They're all making great stuff, and they're not getting the accolades. Also, I feel like Black women are some of the most unique storytellers because we don't tell just the regular superhero stories. We're always aiming to tell a very unique story. I've A lot of the Black women stories I'm reading, these aren't your traditional run of the mill
Mm-hmm.
superheroes, or these aren't your traditional comic book stories. They are all so unique and so different. And I feel like there is also a little bit of hesitation to try something new with a different kind of storytelling. Um, and I'd love to see us support that as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think I've thought about and we've talked about before. It's like there's a hesitation to
Mm.
try new things, and there's, of course, like we said, this is a boys' club, so a lot of time. I think we talked about this recently, maybe on
Mm.
recording a future episode that you'll see later, about how it's like also because it's a boys' club, so a lot of the guys will gravitate to the big guy superhero characters and kind of shy away
Hmm.
from the black woman on the cover. Like, oh, okay, well,
If she's not all, gussied up.
yeah, we don't gussy ours up, so I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I saw Armani. She got yams. She a little she
Well,
caked
I
up.
mean, she is based off of her creator. That's a whole different thing.
Well, I refuse to objectify my friend on camera. I'll do that later.
Oh, and it is something else I have been thinking about with it since you know recently. It's a thought I've had, and I was like, I really do want to change the byline over here because I do want this to be a space for women and femmes. So
Hmm.
even like non-binary femmes, I would love to have like on the show if we know any. I don't know if I know any for the most part or many. But
Uh
I want this to
yeah,
be a space as well for them because if anyone gets less platform than those of us who specifically identify as woman, it's non-binary.
absolutely. Also getting women of different like different kinds of women as well. Definitely
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to trans women and
Yes.
disabled women and other women
I
who
guess
Black
maybe I
women
said
who
it
live.
like that because I was trans women are women, so they count, and so that's why I
Yeah,
didn't really
that's
think of
true.
it like
That's
that.
true.
But yes,
That's
just
valid.
this is a safe space for all women, femmes of any type. I mean, the show is literally hosted by two queer black women, so like, come on down. And well, at least one of us is disabled. I don't. Well, we're both neurodivergent as well, so there you
We're
go.
definitely neurodivergent. I mean, people don't consider glasses as being disabled, but you take these
Well,
glasses off
I mean,
my
hello.
face. That's valid.
I've seen some forums. It's like, do you have a disability? And one of the things would be low eyesight, sir. I can't see my computer anymore. Okay, yeah, yeah. I can't see.
I can't even hear if my glasses aren't on. So.
That's always so weird because I have such good hearing when they're on. Take them off.
Oh,
I'm
when
like,
they're on,
ah,
yeah.
what did
What?
they
What's
say?
going on? I can't.
Chocolate.
I
I
can't see
love
anything.
chocolate.
I can't hear you either. But
So
absolutely, yeah,
just know this is space for all except the men. Well, you guys can
yeah.
come. You can watch and you can comment. You just can't come on.
Mhm.
But we love
I
to.
think what was it? Jack's Prince. They actually have a manga I think they're working on. It's a really pretty manga about queer two queer people who found each other during World War II, and then they're living in Japan, and they're talking about and they're going through their story when they were both spies in World War II.
I think I vaguely remember them bringing that up recently.
I can never remember the name, but I know it's the Japanese word for like flower, I think. I'm such a bad fan. I'm such
We'll go
a
back through
bad fan.
we'll go back through their IG and some of their other social media later and see if we can find it. It
Yes,
also
but
reminds me, they did a show someone recently. I don't remember what it was. This was like last week too. My memory is bad. I have ADHD, y'all. Leave me
don't get me to line because if it's not written down, I ain't see it.
alone. And that's why we must write things on our to-do list and put them in our calendars, or we shall forget. I know it. I just
Hmm.
thought of three things that I was supposed to do by today that I haven't done this week. Just now, as I was saying that.
Oh no. um, but yeah, support black women's rights and wrongs,
Mm-hmm.
support them in comics. If you know a black woman in comics, let us know, because we love to feature her
Mm-hmm.
here as well. And if you know a black woman who wants to get into comics, show her this as well, because she needs to know that we out here.
Right. And she needs to know what Montrez said before. There's space, and if you don't think there is, we'll make some.
Mm-hmm. Move on over. We got you right here.
Right. Just come sit next to me. Come sit next to
Consistent.
Auntie. I'm big sissy over here. Speaking of supporting black women, just so you know, our black women in comics fact of the day is that Yona Harvey and Roxanne Gay, you see how I did that so that it rhymed?
Mm-hmm.
They were the first women to write ongoing series for Marvel Comics that appeared both in print and in digital. So, that has been your Black Women in Comics fact of the day. I need to get a little jingle for that.
I
That'd be
got you.
cool.
I got you. We're gonna do that.
We can do that live. Yeah. We know entirely too many musicians who write music to not have that.
Mm-hmm. Not have that.
I
No,
keep
not that.
forgetting to play the intro before we start. I'm gonna just have to clip it into the beginning.
It's okay. That's what editing is for. They don't need to know that.
Right. So, of course. Also, remember that we have a thing here where at the end of the season, I don't really know how many episodes we're doing this season because I'm still kind of playing it by ear. I'm trying to just get a feel for a new format. But basically, you have a creative challenge where you can submit your own art. And that is art in any form, as long as I have the ability to play/show it on the show for us to present to the audience. And in that case, you can be whatever you want to be, man, woman, child, babe, as long as you can make the art. And so you can submit those to us before the end of the season, and we will pick a few if there's not too many, or we'll pick them all. I like all. If there's not too many to show to our audience at the end of the season. So, of course,
Mm.
I think we've done good so now, and I'm gonna let
Yeah.
Ty wrap herself up.
Yeah. My name is Ty. Yes, I'm sorry. This will not get any better throughout the series. Um, Hi, my name is Ty. I go by Black and Culture. That's BLAQUE, the letter N, KULTURE on all platforms, specifically Instagram, YouTube, TikTok is dying, but I'm going to be over there until the wheels fall off. And now Blue Sky. When you watch this, Blue Sky will exist. Um, so yeah, it's at Black and Culture on all socials. I also have a Ko-fi where I release all of my exclusive content. And that's just Ko-fi.com uh / Black and Culture. And yeah, you can watch all of my personal blog that I'm over there. I've got a video series I'm dropping over there. It's really gonna be on and popping all 2025 and moving forward. So that's the best place to keep up with what I got going on.
It's on and popping, so y'all should join me over there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, I am Natasha of Midnight Comics, or Tashi, as most people call me. That's TOSHI. And you can find me on most socials at Tashi J. I'm sorry, excuse me. At official underscore Tashi J, Toshij, except for Facebook and YouTube, where it's Tashi J89. And of course, I am also the co founder of Midnight Comics, where you can find everywhere as Midnight X Comics, except for Facebook and YouTube, where we are just Midnight Comics. Like she said, we are currently on TikTok. I don't know what's going to happen at TikTok. When we figure that out, we'll decide how we move forward. It's it is what it is at this point. I don't know. So, but yes, and yes, that does include Blue Sky. I think it's Midnight X Comics. It might be Midnight Comics, but mine is official underscore Tashi J. Boom. All right, so that's all we have for today. I'm gonna stop just going on because I don't know. I've got nothing left to talk about for y'all. So anyway, make sure you tune into the next episode of Melanin Minds, and remember until next time that a small spark can create a big flame. And good night.